Cameroon officially reports that 22.3 kilograms of gold were exported in 2023. 22.3 kilograms. But international trade records tell a dramatically different story. Countries importing gold reported receiving approximately 15,194 kilograms from Cameroon during that same year. That is 15.2 tons. Kilograms on one side of the ledger, tons on the other. Importing countries reported about 681 times more gold than Cameroon officially recorded as exports. Where did that gold come from? Who dug it out of the earth? Who bought it? Who moved it? Who declared it? Who didn't? And how can approximately 15 tons of gold appear in international import records when Cameroon officially recorded only 22.3 kilograms leaving the country? Somewhere between those numbers is the story. But before somebody clips those first 30 seconds and turns this into Cameroon lost 15 tons of gold or somebody stole 15 tons, stop. Just stop. We have not proven that. Trade records expose an enormous discrepancy, but they, by themselves, do not name criminals. They do not tell us where every gram was mined. They do not establish every route the gold traveled. They do not tell us whether every country of origin declaration was accurate. And they do not tell us whether some of that gold was produced informally inside Cameroon, entered Cameroon from neighboring countries, was re-exported, was misreported, or moved through some combination of those systems. That is what an investigation is for. And if the truth is explosive, we do not need to exaggerate it. The facts are already loud enough. I'm Joshua T. Berglan, the world's mayor, reporting from Cameroon. This is the World's Mayor Experience, and this is the Shadow Files Episode 2, The Cameroon Gold Gap. And today, we're following the gold. Remember our standard. 4 questions. What do we know? What does the evidence suggest? What do we still not know? And who are we asking for answers? Because this investigation won't work if I arrive with a prepackaged conclusion. Maybe some explanations are criminal. Maybe some are administrative. Maybe this involves smuggling, informal mining, underreporting, cross-border movement, international origin recording problems, or maybe multiple explanations are true at the same time. We are going to follow the evidence. Let's begin at the source. In December 2025, the Extractive Industries Transparency Initiative, EITI, published its report examining Cameroon's extractive sector for 2023. It compared Cameroon's domestic records against international trade data. Here's the baseline. Cameroon recorded approximately 952.8 kilograms of formal gold production in 2023, just under 1 ton. Official gold exports, 22.3 kilograms. Now, cross-check international trade data. Importing countries recorded approximately 15,194 kilograms as coming from Cameroon. About 92% of that total was reported by the United Arab Emirates, and roughly 8% by Uganda. So even the viral headline, Cameroon says kilos, Dubai says 15 tons, it needs nuance. Most of the international total was recorded by the UAE, not all of it. And we're following the data, not simplifying it until it fits nicely into a headline. But here's where the story becomes much harder to dismiss. This did not begin in 2023. In 2021, Cameroon officially recorded approximately 73 kilograms of gold exports. Partner countries reported receiving around 5.6 tons. In 2022, Cameroon officially recorded approximately 47.9 kilograms. Partner country records showed around 4.8 tons. Then came 2023, 22.3 kilograms officially exported, against approximately 15.2 tons reported by importing countries. Whatever ultimately explains these numbers, it is difficult to dismiss this as a one-year anomaly. We're looking at a reoccurring pattern, and the scale of that pattern demands an explanation. Some people jump immediately to another conclusion. They say, if Cameroon formerly produced only about 1 ton, then the remaining 14 tons must have come from somewhere else. Not so fast. Formal production is not necessarily total production. Cameroon's gold economy includes significant artisanal, informal, and semi-mechanized activity, where substantial production can occur outside or only partially inside the formal reporting system. EITI itself gives an indicative estimate suggesting informal production in 2023 could have been on the scale of approximately 15 tons. But that number requires caution too. It is not 15 tons physically counted, mine by mine, with independent inspectors standing beside the scales. It is an estimate, an indication of how large the unrecorded sector may be. So let's define the mystery accurately. Cameroon documented less than 1 ton of formal gold production. Cameroon documented 22.3 kilograms of official gold exports. International partners documented approximately 15.2 tons arriving from Cameroon. And we do not yet have a complete transaction-by-transaction chain linking those numbers. That is the missing link. And that takes us upstream to the mines. Gold production in Cameroon is concentrated heavily in the east and Ottawa regions, places including Bauture, Betareoya, Kete, Ningura, Garuabule, Meganga, and other mining zones. On one side, you have traditional artisanal mining, human labor, shovels, pans, small pits, families and communities searching for gold. On another, you have semi-mechanized operations. And semi-mechanized mining is not simply somebody holding a shovel. We're talking about excavators, pumps, mechanical washing equipment, far greater volumes of earth, far greater potential production, which means more money, greater environmental consequences, and a much greater need for oversight. Then in May of 2026, Cameroon's Ministry of Mines announced something extraordinary. Authorities said an investigation had identified approximately 200 companies operating illegally in artisanal and semi-mechanized mining zones, primarily in the East and Ottawa regions. The ministry said more than 95% were foreign-owned, and published information indicated that many were associated with Chinese nationals. Now, let's immediately separate evidence from emotion. Foreign does not automatically mean illegal. Chinese does not automatically mean illegal. Cameroonian law permits foreign participation in semi-mechanized mining under defined legal conditions. The questions are more precise. Which companies have valid licenses? Who are the real beneficial owners? Does the ownership structure comply with Cameroonian law? Are Cameroonian shareholders genuine owners, or are some merely names appearing on paperwork? Which operations are accurately reporting production? Which are paying the taxes and royalties required by law? Which have environmental authorizations? And which are operating outside the system entirely? If a company plays by the rules, pays its obligations, protects workers, respects communities, and follows environmental requirements, then it deserves the protection of the law, regardless of where its investors were born. Good journalism protects legitimate enterprise while investigating illegitimate activity. Xenophobia is not evidence, but if illegal operators are extracting Cameroonian gold, using false ownership structures, underreporting production, avoiding taxes, or operating without authorization, then we need to follow that too. Name the company, name the owner, show the license, show the production, show the tax record, bring the evidence. Now, why is gold particularly vulnerable to illicit flows? Compare gold to timber. You cannot hide a logging truck inside your luggage. Timber is bulky, visible, difficult to move secretly at scale. Gold is different. Gold is extremely dense, extremely valuable, easy to divide, easy to melt, and relatively easy to transport compared with its financial value. Once gold from different sources is aggregated and refined, reconstructing its physical origin can become dramatically more difficult, especially if the documentary trail is already broken. That combination makes gold incredibly useful and incredibly attractive to legal traders, informal traders, smugglers, money launderers, armed groups, and anyone else trying to move enormous value in very little physical space. So let's follow what happens after the mine. At the local level, gold may move through miners, collectors, purchasing offices, licensed dealers, unlicensed middlemen, private operators, and state institutions. Cash transactions can dominate. Documentation can be incomplete. And every time gold changes hands without a reliable record, the chain becomes harder to reconstruct. In 2020, Cameroon created Sonamine, the National Mining Corporation. Part of its mission was to strengthen state oversight, centralize parts of gold purchasing and commercialization, improve traceability, and help build strategic state reserves, which sounds exactly like the kind of institution you would want when your problem is gold escaping official records. But EITI raised another question. According to its reporting, approximately 269 kilograms of gold collected by Sonamine in 2023 was not clearly accounted for in public financial reporting. Hear exactly what I said. I did not say Sonamine stole 269 kilograms. I did not say the gold disappeared. I said The EITI reporting raises questions about how approximately 269 kilograms were reflected or not clearly reflected in public financial records. That is an accounting and transparency question until evidence proves something more. So, where was the gold? Was it held physically as reserve? Transferred to Treasury? Sold? If it was sold, to whom? For how much? How were proceeds recorded? What records can be reconciled? A state company created partly to improve traceability should be able to demonstrate the traceability of its own gold. That is not an accusation. That is accountability. And Sonamine deserves the opportunity to explain it. Now follow the gold further to the airport, because one of the most remarkable pieces of evidence in this story is not a spreadsheet, it's a seizure. On November 28, 2023, authorities at the Yaoundé Milan International Airport intercepted approximately 30.5 kilograms of gold. 30.5 kilograms. Remember, Cameroon's official gold export total for the entire year was 22.3 kilograms. One seizure, one day, more gold than Cameroon officially recorded during 12 months. Let that sink in. But let's not misuse the evidence. That seizure does not tell us how much gold successfully leaves through airports. It does not establish airports as the dominant route. It does not tell us that every unexplained kilogram went through Yaoundé or Douala. What it does prove is that substantial quantities of gold have moved through commercial passenger channels outside normal export process. And this wasn't the only documented case. In 2021, authorities reportedly seized approximately 30 kilograms at the Yaoundé Milan International Airport. In 2022, approximately 14 kilograms of gold bars were intercepted at Douala International Airport from a passenger reportedly traveling without the required documentation. So passenger-linked gold movement is not theoretical. There are documented cases. What we don't know is how representative those seizures are of what moves through undetected. How much gets caught? How much doesn't? Who facilitates it? Who receives it? And what paperwork appears at the other end? Now we need to move east, because Cameroon's gold story does not stop at Cameroon's border. Cameroon shares a long frontier with Central African Republic. Research from the Institute for Security Studies documents illicit gold networks operating across portions of that border economy, including, forgive the pronunciation, corridors around Contonier in the Central African Republic and Garoua Boule in Cameroon. Researchers have also documented armed groups, including 3R, the UPC, and the MPC, extracting revenue from mining activity, miners, traders, and routes and parts of the Central African Republic. That raises an important regional question. Can conflict-linked gold move toward Cameroon and enter a wider commercial networks? The evidence says that regional trafficking pathways exist, but I'm not going to tell you that all 15 tons in Cameroon's 2023 discrepancy came from the Central African Republic. We cannot prove that. We do not know what percentage, if any, of the international total represents CAR origin gold. And we have not reconstructed the entire route, shipment by shipment. What researchers have documented is conflict-linked gold moving through regional networks toward Cameroon. What we have not yet established is precisely how much becomes mixed into Cameroonian supply, what documentation follows it, and where specific shipments ultimately end up. That is the investigation. Was the gold mined in Cameroon? Did some originate in the CAR? Was Cameroon the true country of origin? Was Cameroon only the country of dispatch? Were importing country origin declarations accurate? Was gold from different sources aggregated? Those distinctions matter, because when gold is connected to armed conflict, its history matters. Who mined it matters. Who taxed it matters. Who benefited matters. Who suffered matters. And whoever eventually buys, imports, or refines that gold has questions to answer too. Which brings us to the United Arab Emirates. The UAE is one of the world's major gold trading hubs, and according to the underlying trade data in Cameroon's EITI reporting, approximately 92% of the roughly 15.2 tons recorded by partner countries in 2023 was reported by the UAE, roughly 14 tons. And Cameroon is not the only African country where export and destination records raise questions. SwissAid, a Swiss development organization that has studied African gold flows, estimates that between 2012 and 2022, the UAE imported approximately 2,569 tons of gold from Africa that African source countries had not recorded as exports. SwissAid estimated the value at approximately 115 billion US dollars. Now, those are SwissAid's estimates. They are not criminal convictions. They do not prove every ton was smuggled. And they do not prove that Cameroon's 2023 discrepancy followed exactly the same pathway. But they establish a much larger question. Why do export records from African source countries and destination country gold import records so often fail to tell the same story? And why does the UAE appear so frequently on the destination side? Historically, researchers, investigative organizations, and anti-corruption groups have criticized weaknesses involving hand-carried gold, origin verification, supplier due diligence, and the ability of high-risk gold to enter international markets. But fairness requires us to acknowledge something else. The UAE has changed its rules. Since 2023, gold refiners operating in the UAE have been subject to mandatory responsible sourcing due diligence requirements, aligned with OECD standards. Those requirements involve identifying suppliers, assessing supply chain risk, responding to identified risk, independent review, and public due diligence reporting. The UAE strengthened parts of its framework further in 2024, and in February of 2024, the Financial Action Task Force, FATF, removed the UAE from increased monitoring after recognizing progress in addressing previously identified anti-money laundering weaknesses. Those facts matter. So I'm not going to stand here and tell you the UAE has done nothing. That would be false. The UAE has strengthened rules. It has strengthened oversight. And international regulators have recognized progress. Now comes the question that matters. When gold arrives in a major international trading hub and the source's country's records show no corresponding legal export or dramatically less, what happens next? Does the importer ask for the source country export authorization? Can a refinery independently verify where the gold was mined? What happens when the origin declarations conflict with source country custom records? Which businesses bought Cameroonian gold in 2023? Which refineries processed it? What documentation did they receive? Were Cameroonian export permits verified? Those are not anti-UAE questions. They're global financial integrity questions. And the UAE deserves the opportunity to answer them. Because if we're going to investigate the source, we have to investigate the destination. Remember the principle from episode 1. If the transaction is global, the investigation has to be global too. You cannot build an international market and then localize all the accountability. If illegally exported gold leaves Cameroon, somebody may receive it. Somebody may buy it. Somebody may finance it. Somebody may refine it. Somebody may sell it again. Eventually, that gold may become jewelry, bullion, a financial asset, a reserve, or another product, thousands of kilometers removed from the mine. Extraction has a destination. And this is why gold matters to the discussion of illicit financial flows, because gold itself can function as money. You do not necessarily have to wire millions of dollars through a bank if you can physically move millions of dollars in metal. Gold stores value, moves value, converts value, and can cross borders in relatively little physical space, which makes traceability not merely a mining issue, it's a customs issue, a financial integrity issue, an anti-money laundering issue, a border security issue, and where armed groups are involved, potentially a peace and security issue. Now let's talk about the money. Because when people hear 15 tons of gold, they immediately start calculating hospitals, schools, roads, jobs, and billions of dollars supposedly stolen from taxpayers. Slow down. Commercial gold value is not the same thing as government revenue. The entire market price of privately produced gold does not automatically belong to the state. Mining has cost, labor, fuel, equipment, investment, private ownership interest, and the applicable taxes and royalties depend on the legal regime. So I'm not going to calculate the market value of 15 tons and pretend the entire amount should have gone into Cameroon's treasury. That would be false. But there are real fiscal consequences. EITI cites an estimate that leakages associated with Cameroon's gold sector may cost the country around 165 billion CFA francs, approximately 300 million US dollars, in public revenue annually. That is an estimate, and it deserves scrutiny too. What production assumptions were used? Which taxes were included? How much informal production was assumed? How much was attributed to undeclared export? Those details matter And more recently, Cameroon's own government has released broader estimates. In July of 2026, mining authorities presented figures covering 2021 through 2025. According to those government estimates, official exports recorded through customs and Sonamine during that period totaled approximately 1.897 tons. Authorities estimated that approximately 46.219 tons were likely exported, a difference of approximately 44.322 tons, and the government estimated a cumulative fiscal revenue shortfall of approximately 577.51 billion CFA francs across that 5-year period. Again, government estimate, not a court verdict, not transaction by transaction proof, and not the same thing as EITI's annual estimate. Keep the numbers separate. But something important has happened. The government itself is publicly acknowledging a major problem and trying to measure it. That is important. Because journalism should recognize action, not only failure. If government responds to evidence, say so. If government launches an investigation, say so. If government changes policy, say so. Then investigate whether those actions actually work. In February of 2026, Cameroon's presidency ordered the creation of a mixed investigative commission focused on illegal gold trafficking. Authorities have also announced closures of non-compliant sites, permit revocations, tighter production declarations, requirements involving closed-circuit processing, and intensified scrutiny of mining operators. By May, officials said approximately 200 illegal companies had been identified, and in July, the acting mines minister emphasized an important distinction. The central issue, according to the government's position, was not simply gold being removed from a state vault. It was widespread underreporting and production occurring outside official channels. That distinction changes the entire story, because I've seen this framed as Cameroon had 15 tons of gold and somebody stole it. That is not what these records establish. Much of the gold may never have entered state possession. The problem being investigated is that gold may have been produced, bought, moved, and exported without fully being captured by the official system. So the solution isn't simply find the missing vault. The solution involves mining licenses, production reporting, beneficial ownership, mine site controls, tax enforcement, Sonamine, customs, airports, land borders, regional cooperation, buying houses, international importers, refineries, banks, and destination country regulators. This is not one leak. It's a system. And if the system crosses borders, the solution has to cross borders too. Imagine Cameroon creates perfect traceability tomorrow. Every mine licensed, every gram weighed, every buyer recorded, every owner identified, every tax paid, every export digitally tracked. Would that solve everything? If destinations failed to verify whether arriving gold had been illegally exported, no. Now reverse it. Imagine Dubai creates the strongest gold import controls on earth. Perfect refinery due diligence, perfect customs verification, perfect financial controls. Would that solve Cameroon's problem if production at the mine remains hidden? No. That's why accountability has to exist at every stage: mine, buyer, exporter, customs, transit country, importer, refinery, bank, destination market, every participant in the chain. And this is why I'm not reducing this investigation to corrupt Africans smuggling gold. That's lazy. And I'm also not reducing it to foreigners are stealing Africa's gold. That can be lazy too. Who, which company, which official, which buyer, which owner, which transaction, which refinery, which bank, which document. Nationality is not evidence. Race is not evidence. A suspicious transaction can be evidence. A false production declaration can be evidence. A forged permit can be evidence. A shell company can be evidence. A customs record can be evidence. A bank transfer can be evidence. An ownership registry can be evidence. That is what we follow. And now let's go back to the people physically closest to the resource, the communities. Because the word gold makes people imagine wealth, but the person standing beside a gold pit may not be wealthy. An artisanal miner may work under dangerous conditions for a small fraction of the eventual value. A community may live beside gold while roads remain poor. Water can be polluted. Land can be damaged. Open pits can remain after operators leave. And then the gold moves on. So don't begin the story with poverty. Follow the resource first. Follow the mine. Follow the license. Follow the beneficial owner. Follow the production declaration. Follow the collector. Follow the buyer. Follow Sonamine. Follow customs. Follow the airport. Follow the border. Follow the destination importer. Follow the refinery. Follow the bank. Follow the money. Then go back to the village and ask why a community living beside extraordinary natural value may still lack clean water, good roads, reliable electricity, or economic opportunity. Because sometimes what we call poverty is the final chapter of a financial story we never bothered to investigate from the beginning. And what we're really investigating is sovereignty. Who controls the resource? Who knows how much exists? Who knows how much was produced? Who knows who owns the company extracting it? Who records what leaves? Who sees what arrives? And who can follow the money afterward? A country can legally own the resources beneath its soil on paper, but if it cannot reliably follow that resource from the pit to the buyer, to the border, to the refinery, to the bank, how much sovereignty over that wealth does it actually possess? So let's close the file with 4 questions. 1. What do we know? Cameroon officially recorded 22.3 kilograms of gold exports in 2023. Partner countries recorded approximately 15.194 tons coming from Cameroon. About 92% was reported by the UAE and roughly 8% by Uganda. Similar discrepancies appeared in 2021 and 2022. Airport seizures have involved quantities larger than Cameroon's entire official annual export figure. EITI raised questions about 269 kilograms collected by Sonamine in public financial reporting. Regional illicit gold networks exist. Cameroon is investigating illegal operators, closing sites, revoking permits, and trying to strengthen oversight. That's what we know. 2. What does the evidence suggest? Cameroon's formal reporting system has historically captured only part of the gold moving through the wider economy. It suggests significant underreporting, informal activity, smuggling, and cross-border flows. But a systematic problem does not automatically identify every participant in the system. Number three, what do we still not know? Exactly how much of the 15.2 tons was mined inside Cameroon? How much, if any, originated elsewhere? How much moved by air or land? Which exporters, importers, beneficial owners, refineries, or financial institutions were involved? Which officials, if any, facilitated illegal activity? Do we not yet possess a transaction-level chain explaining all 15,194 kilograms? Those aren't weaknesses in this investigation. Those are the investigation. Number four, who are we asking for answers? Minmit? Sonamine? Cameroonian customs? Tax authorities? Mining companies? Artisanal miners? Mining communities? EITI? The Institute for Security Studies? UAE regulators? Dubai? Customs? International importers? Gold refineries? Ugandan authorities? And anyone who can bring credible, verifiable evidence into this file. If you believe these numbers are being misunderstood, show me. If you work for government, bring the records. If you work for Sonamine, explain the accounting. If you're a legitimate mining operator, show us how the system is supposed to work. If you're an artisanal miner, tell us exactly what happens at home. If you work in Dubai, tell me what happens when African gold arrives. If you believe somebody committed a crime, don't send me outrage. Send me evidence, license, ownership records, production reports, customs declarations, contracts, bank records, documents. Bring the receipts, because you do not win on the shadow files by being the angriest person in the room. Your argument wins if your evidence survives scrutiny. And if something I reported is wrong, please correct me. A correction is not journalism failing. A correction is journalism working. If the evidence changes, we change the story. That's the standard. And that question of sovereignty is taking us somewhere much darker next. Because gold is not the first strategic resource in Central Africa that attracted the attention of powerful interests outside the continent. More than 60 years ago, in the country we now call the Democratic Republic of Congo, a newly independent nation inherited extraordinary mineral wealth: copper, cobalt, uranium, and standing at the center was a young prime minister, Patrice Lumumba. Within months of independence, a foreign intelligence agency was developing plans to eliminate him. Months later, he was dead. Those are documented facts, but they are not the whole story. Who killed Patrice Lumumba? Who helped construct the road that led to his execution? What role did Belgium play? What role did the United States play? What role did Congolese political rivals play? What role did Cold War geopolitics play? And underneath all of it, what happens when a newly independent African country sits on resources the world's most powerful nations consider strategically essential? That's episode 3, the Lumumba file. And just like this investigation, we're not choosing the conclusion or how to pronounce some of these names before we open the evidence. I'm Joshua T. Berglan, the world's mayor. This is the world's mayor experience, and these are the shadow files. Cameroon is where I'm reporting from. Africa is our field. The world is the beat. Follow the mine, follow the document, follow the product, follow the ownership, follow the border, follow the refinery, follow the bank, follow the money, and wherever the evidence goes, we go. 22.3 kilograms on one side, 15.2 tons on the other. Somewhere between those numbers is the story. We're following the gold, and this file is wide open.